Alright guys, so I'm just going to be straight up with you here. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to be some YouTuber that sits there and says, "Stay tuned to find out," and clickbaits you into a video and waste your time. So I'm just going to get straight to the point here before I go any further. Do I recommend doing this? Not really. That is unless you're deleted, in which case go ahead, or if you just have some issue, some problem, or dislike of the factory intake pipe, then go ahead. But for turbo noise, not really on a stock truck. This was, at least for me, supposed to increase the turbo noise. Didn't really notice much of a difference at all, maybe a slight little bit, but it's not worth all the labor, all the fucking finagling and getting everything to squeeze on there, rotating, those elbows so that they're at the right angle and stuff. It's just kind of a pain in the ass, and it's not worth all the labor. It's only about $70 in parts, so it's not the worst way to waste your money on your truck or vehicle mods, whatever, but just want to get that out of the way. If you're deleted though, this surely should have a more pronounced effect, but if you're on a stock truck, it doesn't really do much, and I thought that this was going to be a nice kind of way to give some extra turbo noise to the vehicle without actually deleting it, but sadly that didn't really turn out to be the case. With that out of the way, if you still want to get rid of the factory intake pipe for some reason, you're just not a fan of the plastic and all that, then by all means you can still go ahead and do it, and I'll show you how it's done. So here we go. We're going to be deleting the intake silencer. This is also referred to as a intake baffle, or simply an intake tube. Basically this tube that runs off of the airbox here to the turbo. Don't actually know at this moment in time, as of recording this, if there is an actual silencer in there to reduce noise, or if it is simply the soft plastic that absorbs noise. Either way, this can be replaced. This is mostly just for turbo noise, okay? There's not a whole lot of performance increase from this, if any. Obviously, the best way is to just straight up, delete your truck, get the DPF out of there. The parts list for this, we're looking at about $72. So the big portion of this is gonna be your pipe and the two elbows. So this is a 3-inch aluminum pipe here with the flared ends, and then you've got 90-degree 3-inch going to 3 1/4, 90-degree elbow silicone. You've got your 45-degree going from 3-inch to 2 1/4. This is for the turbo side. So the 90-degree is going to come off the airbox to your pipe right here, and then from your pipe you're going to come off of that and go to your turbo. For your elbow coming off the airbox, you're going to use a 3 1/4 clamp, and as you can see, these are 83 to 91 millimeter T-clamps, which is perfect. Now, going to the turbo, I actually did buy a T-clamp, and I got one in the correct size range, but I was having a lot of trouble actually getting it to fit in the tight spot where the turbo is. So I actually abandoned that, and I just went with the standard hose clamp, worm clamp. If you want to try to get a T-clamp in there, I did find one. This is the one right here. If you want to go ahead and add this on and try to get it to work yourself, you can, but I didn't even end up using it. Our working number being 67, this falls within it. This is the best I could find. So it was a perfect fit for the turbo side, but with everything being so tight, it felt like it was getting too obstructed in there, and I couldn't get it to fit. So I just went with the standard worm drive. Anyway, $71, or if you want to try to make it work, $76. Those hose clamps. But you can use a socket. I'm pretty sure a socket fits on that. I don't know if that's a 10 or if that's an 8. It's like it'd be an 8 or something. If I had my bitch socket, my 1/4 inch, if I had it, I would use it. But I don't, I lost it. I know where it is, I just don't have it on me. But yeah, this is an 8. So we're just gonna undo this glass a little easier here. Come on, cunt. I'm guessing this is actually the intake silencer from what it looks like. And I probably could separate this all in one piece, but just to make my life a little easier, I'm gonna take this elbow off, and then I'm gonna do the silencer after. Goodbye. We won't be seeing you again. All right, and there's that intake heater that I already dealt with. Now this will be interesting because we're gonna have to figure out a solution to this. We're gonna have to figure out a place to mount this. We'll probably just have to zip tie it or something. Because from what I've heard, if you just delete this entirely, it'll throw code, so we don't want that. This mod eliminates the need for this intake heater. I mean, if you've already vented to atmosphere anyway, the intake heater has... Okay, so if you're not really sure what I just said by venting to atmosphere, what I'm referring to is the engine's closed crankcase ventilation system, the CCV system. Now, I recommend you deal with this in one of two ways, either with a couch can or just venting it to atmosphere. Now, couch can is going to be closer to a more factory style setup, and you're going to have zero fumes exiting the vehicle. However, you do have to empty out this catch can periodically, and if you forget to do so, you're gonna have a huge fucking mess on your hands. You don't wanna do all that. If you vent to atmosphere, you're gonna be left with a slight smell outside the truck when you're idling. If your emission's attacked, you should not be idling your truck anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. And if you're deleted, then you should straight up just pipe it into your exhaust, not vent to atmosphere. So those are the kind of the two things with that. Either piping to the exhaust and vent to atmosphere are zero maintenance solutions. You just set it and forget it, never have to worry about anything. Whereas the catch can setup is going to be zero smell, more factory style setup, but there's a filter you got to replace and all that. But it just depends on what you want to do. There's multiple ways to attack it. The reason I'm saying this now is because this mod that we're about to do is not compatible with the stock CCV configuration. If you already have your CCV vented to atmosphere, or you have a vent to exhaust setup, what you're looking at right now, you're gonna know what's going on here. You're gonna be like, okay, whatever. But if you are in stock configuration or you're running a catch can, you're gonna have to do something about it because, well, or just skip over this whole mod entirely. Because personally, I don't think it's not the best thing since sliced bread, okay? And if we're being honest here, I only really think this is worth doing if you're deleted anyway. And if you're deleted, then you can totally just pipe this into your exhaust, right? But on an emissions intact vehicle, you're either gonna have a stock crankcase vent configuration, a catch can, or you're vented to atmosphere like I am here. Now, if you have a catch can, you are gonna have to take the line coming off the catch can and you're gonna have to vent it somewhere. But you're not gonna be able to run it into your intake heater anymore because you won't have an inlet anymore. Could you tap a bung into your aluminum pipe and create a little inlet? You totally could. You totally could. But now it's like, is it really worth it? You make that decision. I can't say yes or no. It has just sat there basically useless, but I'm gonna have to figure out something to do with that. But for now, I'm just gonna see if I can remove it. Just yank it out of here. See. So it's just got these plastic tabs, kind of like a medicine bottle, where you squeeze the sides, and then that'll allow you to pull it out. See that? There's like a little serrated edge there for where you're supposed to squeeze. This is just gonna have to sit somewhere secured. I'm just gonna hang it off this little tab for now while we're working in here. For this, I think I'm just gonna put one of those studs back, honestly, and just hang it off that stud. These are for the engine cover, and I took the engine cover off and the studs. But I think I'll put this back in, actually. Just use it to hang that intake heater off of. We're gonna, yeah, right there, yeah. But honestly, I'm not too concerned with this. I'm not really too worried about this guy. I did talk with the guy that running with this setup for a while. I asked him, I said, have you been having any issues, with hard starting, in colder weather, because that intake heater is no longer there. And he said after removing it, it's had zero effect, the starting of his engine. So that leads me to believe that this intake heater is just for the melting of the moisture and stuff coming out of the CCV system. And I don't really think it has a lot to do with the cold winter starting of the vehicle itself. Probably would be good to plug that up, but seeing as it's never gonna get used again, I don't really care. Yeah, that looks fine to me. And yeah, you could, you know, put a rubber cap on that. That probably would be best, but I'm just gonna leave it like this and say fuck it. If really the only reason for that heater is for the CCV system, and it doesn't even work that well anyway, because obviously we see these turbo failures, which you could try to prevent by just letting your truck cycle on, you know, leaving the key turn on and letting it sit like that for 10 seconds, or maybe give it a couple cycles or whatever to get that intake heater kicked on and fully melt whatever in your CCV system line, tracked, whatever. While you could do that, that only covers you if you start the truck from inside. So if you do a remote start, that intake heater is not doing a good enough job to actually protect your turbo. I really don't care about deleting it, and we don't make use of it anyway with it bypassed, right? We just vented it to atmosphere, so we're not even using it anyway. I've never actually looked at my turbo before. Like, I've never actually seen it in person because it's so tucked away like that. I've never actually looked at it, but there it is in all its glory. Now it's time to get that hose clamp off down there. Looks like it'll slightly fit in there, but I'm actually gonna get a slightly longer extension. I used that same extension, but I used a swivel and a deep. With that loosened, we should just pull this guy off completely. There she goes. So this, I guess, is our intake silencer, huh? Ah, she's kind of dirty. Yeah. See if we can get some light in there to see. Yeah, there actually is. There's some holes in there. So, yeah, we are getting rid of that. Hopefully, should make the turbo more audible. And I mean, I'll be the first to tell you if this is a waste of money and time. Really, I will. If this doesn't really do much, you will know. I will tell you. There's our turbo. Might as well check out those turbo fins, huh? To see if they're not bent. That'd be nice. Well, thank God they're not bent, so we're good. Let's get this guy in, shall we? All right, so after messing with this for way too damn long, hit up the guy that originally helped me out with the parts list for this. He showed me his setup, and it was obvious that he did some, he basically said, yeah, you gotta do some trimming. That's probably why I was having so much trouble with this. I trimmed about 1.25 inches off the short side, and I trimmed about maybe 2 inches, like 1 3/4 to 2 inches off the big side. I've been wasting way too much time with this already. You shouldn't have to suffer like me if you do the trimming, hopefully. So I'm gonna try this again. We're gonna give this a second go. All right, so with the trimming, looks like it should work. Got that boot right there, that elbow. Go into the pipe. I did have to just push down on this slightly. It didn't like completely one-to-one clear it, but you know, it's flexible silicone, so it's fine. You can see that's how it is. Now you can probably trim this up more, but to be honest with you, I've lost my patience, and I'm also just a lazy fuck. So this is good enough for me. You could probably trim that more to get more of a flush fit, but as far as I'm concerned, I think it should be fine. I think it should be fine. So I'm gonna start getting the clamps on here and putting this together. I will say by not trimming this top hose, you're losing some metal, some bare metal, right? Because essentially the more metal we have open to the air, the more turbo sound, right? You want as much resonance as possible. I had to push this top elbow in pretty damn far to get it to fit. And I feel like that's just kind of like a wasted opportunity for some sound by not trimming it. So I actually am gonna trim this. I'm probably gonna trim it, let's see. I'm probably gonna come up just past the halfway point on that. Trimmed up the other elbow. I think I may have, holy shit, I fucked up. No, I didn't. You can just kind of eyeball this. I'm sorry I don't have a tape measure on hand right now. Don't know where it went. But this is just about the width of the lip on the factory airbox, right around the same width on that. And for this is almost like 2 inches that I trimmed. I think I might have went a little overboard. Keep in mind, because you're still gonna need space to do a T-clamp, and you need to have enough surface for that T-clamp without it. You don't want it digging in. And I think I just barely, like that's cutting it too close. I actually did too much. So when in doubt, you know, it's better to have too much than not enough. And in this case, I am borderline not having enough. So it's always better to trim less than you think. I actually bought a T-clamp for the turbo side, but you're just not gonna be able to get it in there. It's just too tight of a space. So what I did is definitely the wrong thing. I'm just a lazy bastard, so I reused the factory hose clamp going into the turbo. I wouldn't recommend it though, especially because of these ridges here. If you want to, you can. I'm not recommending it. It's definitely not the right thing to do here. You would want to use just a regular hose clamp. Again, I'm a lazy fuck. I've spent way too much time on this already, so I'm just gonna send it. It's time to do that guy right there. I flipped that hose clamp around. It's going that way just because it's easier to get in from the left side. There's more free space. You just get under this charge pipe here, and then you can get access under here way easier from that side. So I switched it. Get in like that. Well, this is fucking great. All the audio on the next several clips that I needed to use for this video is broken. So we're just gonna follow along. You're just gonna follow along with me in post here. So what I was gonna talk about in this clip is to be careful when trimming the side of the elbow connecting to the airbox, coming off the airbox, because if you trim too much, you're gonna bring the pipe too close. This entire pipe is gonna lean too much toward the passenger side, and this is a problem because you have that charge pipe there, and you know, you don't want shit coming into contact and rattling and rubbing and doing all that kind of stuff. So when you trim, you should be very sparing. I trimmed way too much when I did mine, so I would probably just go half that, honestly. You could probably get away without even trimming it at all. In fact, I would recommend that. I would recommend you don't even trim the very end of this entire contraption at all, that elbow coming to the airbox. I would recommend you don't trim it until the very end, unless absolutely necessary. Because any length coming off of that elbow, the more length we have, the more it kind of pushes this entire intake assembly thing that we've made, helps push that back toward the driver's side and away and off of that charge pipe. And you can see by just the grace of God, I barely made it. I barely freaking made it. There's just the slightest gap, but it'll do. It's not rattling or moving or hitting anything, so definitely wouldn't be cutting it so close if I would have just been more careful with cutting it and trimming it and not taking off so much. So here I'm just giving you a final look at everything, how everything's set up. You got the first T-clamp down there facing the left. Of course, I just threw that factory worm clamp back on the turbo side because I was lazy. And your next two T-clamps are going to be facing the right. It's actually kind of disappointing. Don't mind the chirping, that's my back seat fucked up. Okay, I do hear it a little bit. It's so subtle though, I don't even think this is worth all the time and effort, guys. I don't think that it's worth it. Hey guys, that's how you delete the intake silencer.